free to do so. Okay, we are just going to wait another minute for Grant. We are on. He, I know, was driving back, so he could be delayed just by a few minutes. So we'll probably begin in just one moment. And he can always blend into our conversation. All right, we'll give it just a minute.
I see Grant's name on the board anyway, that is, oh, there he is. Yeah.
So. Grant, are you there? Okay, there is a chat. Grant, he's on. Okay, all right. So everybody, we're going to begin.
I'm here, Lisa. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Are you able to enable your video so we can see you? Okay. Once you, well, we're going to carry on. Grant, try to enable your video when you have a second and just jump in. All right, here we go. I want to welcome everybody to the Erase Extinction event, the Global Erase Extinction event for 2021. Thank you so much for all of you joining us in this great effort in the name of saving wildlife and all of that sort of stuff, both in Africa and Asia. We have some amazing beneficiaries with us today, and I'm going to give you a little bit of bird's eye view into who everybody is. We have Rabia Hauer from Ulinzi Africa Foundation, Brent Staplekamp from the Softfoot Alliance, Nico Jacobs, Rhino 911, Grant Fowles from Project Rhino, and Bibhuti Prasad Lakar from Aranyak Foundation, which is in India. So thank you everybody for joining us and giving us your time. It means a great deal for us to have you. I'd like to go around and each of you please just introduce yourself briefly and let us know what organization you work for and what you're currently up to. I'm going to start with Brent Staplekamp.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, my name is Brent Staplekamp. Welcome everybody. It's a pleasure to be amongst you. I, as well as my wife, we founded the Softfoot Alliance. So we work for the Softfoot Alliance. It's a community-based conservation project that tackles human-wildlife conflict from a very different tack. Ostensibly, we are trying to create landscapes of abundance, and if there's more to share, then there's less conflict. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rabia Hauer, can we hear from you, please?
Hi everyone, so I am the founder of Ulinzi Africa Foundation. We're East Africa's first organization that focuses on ranger welfare and empowerment, and we currently are focusing our efforts in Kenya's Tana River Delta. It's where Kenya's longest river meets the Indian Ocean, and it's been a space in conservation that's been ignored for a very long time, and so we're trying to provide wildlife security there and mitigate human-wildlife conflict as well.
Thank you so much. And I must apologize, it's because I didn't see the name on the side. Rachel Morton from Game Rangers International. How can I not say your name before? So I apologize. Rachel, thank you so much for being with us. Rachel, could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, hi, thanks, Lisa. Nice to meet you all, see you all on the screen. My name is Rachel and I work for Game Rangers International that is based in Zambia. Game Rangers International takes a holistic approach to wildlife conservation. So we work through 3 sort of thematic programs to tackle conservation, and that is resource protection, community outreach, and wildlife rescue. And my role within the organization is to support the wildlife rescue program.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Grant Fowles, can I hear from you, please?
Hi, Lisa. I hope I'm coming through all right. We are old friends. I've been involved with Erase my 2nd year now. So, and together with a number of other organizations in mostly KwaZulu-Natal, but in Southern Africa and some African countries. And we just have protection and stop wildlife crime of any description, be it aerial surveillance, boots and binoculars, flying, and also dogs and horses and so on for most of private and community reserves in South Africa.
Thank you. Nico Jacobs, may I hear from you, please?
Good afternoon or morning to you all. A privilege to join this group. I am Nico Jacobs, the founder of Rhino 911. We're on the forefront of rhino protection in South Africa, more particular in the Northwestern province, which entails everything from aerial support to incursions and rhino rescues, airlifting of orphaned rhinos. So yes, we try to protect the species and have been doing so for the past 15, 16 years. Thank you for the opportunity to share with this group, and thank you, Lisa, for everything you're doing. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Vibhuti Prasad, may I hear from you, please?
Good afternoon, good morning. My name is Dr. Vibhuti Prasad Lahakar. I associate with one NGO called Aranya. It is based in Assam, northeast India part. And this is we are 32-year-old organization. We have been involving various threatened species conservation like rhino, tiger, elephant in northeast India. And apart from that, we also work on we have 4 pillars: research, education, livelihood, and policy advocacy. So I am involved in this organization for last 27 years, and my position is program secretary, and also I look after elephant conservation division in the organization. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you. So before I get into it, what I want to ask all of you is, it's a kind of an obvious question, but it's a very relevant question. And how have the effects of COVID been on wildlife and your organizations? How has it affected each of your organizations? Do you feel that there's been a positive environmental impact at all on wildlife? And what is the negative impact of COVID? So anybody who would like to jump in first and answer, I'd like to get a little brief description from each of you on how COVID has affected you and wildlife. Rabia, may I start with you, please?
Sure. I mean, I can say obviously firsthand the impact at during the first wave, so to speak, of COVID was really difficult for us to bear. We lost quite a lot of our donor base, from our side. I'm not sure what everyone else experienced, but from our side, we really took a hit with regards to that. Of course, the other knock-on effects were that people were not able to go to work, and they were all flocking to their hometowns, which is in the rural areas, which often surrounds these ecosystems. And so we did have a spike in bushmeat poaching for subsistence quite considerably. And so trying to manage that, of course, with kind of less resources, if you will, and less support, that was really difficult for us. So I can say that we did definitely notice a spike in poaching for subsistence. I know that in other areas, they faced a spike in poaching for trophies, which of course were then being traded. So it did affect us negatively for sure. One positive thing that I will say, for us at least, is that we were confined to the bush, and so we were not really exposed to the virus or infections per se. So I can say those are our experiences from the Tana River area.
And that's also, you are the only anti-poaching unit working in the remote area of the Tana Delta in Kenya, correct?
That's correct. We're the only ones operating within the lower Delta, specifically in Kipini. So that's like literally where the river comes into the ocean. We do get some supplementary support from Kenya Wildlife Service, although the entire reason why we set up there was because they themselves were under capacity. And so we kind of stepped in to provide that additional support and presence on the ground to be able to protect the wildlife in this space.
Great. And then so Grant and Nico, you're both working in the area of KwaZulu-Natal or different parts of South Africa. So what have you noticed since this whole epidemic has begun? And do you have more, I feel like you all have a little bit more support than perhaps like Rabia does in this very remote area.
If I could just correct, Nico is working mostly in the north.
Okay, so Nico, you work
and
more.
I'm working Eastern Cape, Natal, KwaZulu-Natal.
Oh gosh. Okay, it's a very bad network.
Correct, Lisa. I'm sure if I can just, is it an American network or is it African that's so
I think
bad?
I think I hate to say, but I think it could be your network. It could be your Wi-Fi, but maybe just start or carry on for just a moment. Let's see if it gets a little bit better. Otherwise, Nico, could you interject? Could you jump in?
Yeah, it's been doing this all. I think we're having snow.
Okay, I'm going to ask Grant to restart. And Nico, could I ask you?
I think it's bad weather.
Okay.
All right. Lisa, so from my side, I think the whole COVID has been the worst that I've ever seen in my life, detrimental to conservation and to the effect of just local people visiting the parks. With regards to poaching, we've actually in the beginning of COVID seen a huge increase in rhino poachings. I think we've recorded 24 in the first 6 weeks, about 24 rhinos in the areas that I work, which is quite extensive. So yes, I haven't seen such a devastation in funds pouring in, and you need to appreciate that the people, the tourists in the parks are our ears and eyes on the ground that help us to see, a dehydrated calf or a wounded animal, or anything that's happening. So it's extra people in the veld, not even talking about the actual game rangers that were cut to the minimum in terms of their capabilities and what they could do. During the day. Most of them were sent home. They were sitting with a skeleton crew of APU anti-poaching people on the reserves. As Rabia said, that the positive side is, you're aware that we were the first to be successful in doing such a huge reserve as Pilanesberg and Madikwe and Botsolanu, which we did hundreds and hundreds of rhinos in literally a matter of 11 days, 12 days. So, and after that, obviously, the whole COVID thing, died the funding down completely. So we were sitting with very, very limited resources and this massive incline that we had to attend to. So, that was the negative side. Positive side was that there was nobody in the park. So we didn't have, if we do dart an animal, we were there immediately, where you have, 2,000 people in the park at any particular day. That would make it very difficult to reach the animals, because all the cars then flock together to see what's the chaos about. Yeah. But, I can really say that, COVID has been very, very bad for the industry, for the tourist industry, for the inflow of financial assistance to the parks. So it was challenging, but yeah, we'll carry it as we go along.
Rachel, thank you so much, Nico. Rachel, have you had an influx of baby elephant, orphaned elephants being rescued, or what have you noticed?
Yeah, actually the opposite, and similar to, I guess, Nico's observations, tourism in the parks does give you more eyes in the park and more presence. So throughout sort of the last 18 months, there's only been 3 reports of orphans, which is surprisingly low. So I do think that that's due to the sort of lower levels of personnel moving around the parks. But in terms of as an organization, we're lucky that we have funding that isn't all linked to tourism. So, you know, there have been some losses for sure, and it has been a difficult time. But because, you know, we're lucky to have some institutional partners, that has enabled us to keep going. And Zambia itself has had some challenges in terms of COVID. Obviously, you know, there is COVID here, and we've had times where we've gone through the waves and the lockdowns, but it hasn't stopped our operations, which has been critical. So the rangers have been able to operate. We as a rescue department have been able to operate, which is really, really key. And then linking with what Rabia said, we have seen an increase in bushmeat poaching. So again, you know, the effects of COVID, people moving into the more rural areas because of lack of employment opportunities, you know, through the cities and also in the tourism sector, has resulted in that increase in bushmeat poaching. I don't think there has been a notable increase in the trophy poaching, to my knowledge. But yeah, obviously there are lots of challenges. But I do think Zambia in general has been quite fortunate in the way that we've been able to manage the virus and the sort of lower numbers if you look at the cases compared to other countries.
Thank you. Brent, what about you? What have you been noticing in Zimbabwe?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, part of my work is to rescue or to dart and treat snared animals. And I must say, if that's an index of snaring, then we haven't seen the spike that we predicted would come with COVID. More people did come home to their rural areas, but I don't think I've darted more than 2 or 3 animals to take snares off in the whole extent of the COVID period. So we haven't seen that spike that we predicted. Certainly, a lot of the people around us, because we live right on the edge of Wanga National Park, a lot of our neighbors are guides or employed in the safari camps, and a lot of them were laid off, or they have reduced sort of schedules. So that hit people hard, but a great part of our work, the Softwood Alliance, is finding alternatives, not just alternatives, but diversifying people's income revenue sources. And one of those is the harvesting of the wild Kalahari melon. There's the seed in the wild Kalahari melon has an international market for oils. And where people lost their jobs, they actually got an income from the harvesting of these melons and selling the seeds. So I think that gave us as an organization a bit of a bump, because it showed that you do need to diversify your income to be more resilient in the face of climate change or all these other uncertainties. So of course it's hit people hard, but I think we got off fairly lightly as a nation and as an area. Thanks.
Great, thank you. And Babooty, what have you been noticing with the tiger population in India?
COVID has really impacted a lot, particularly to NGOs like us. Funding was a challenge during the COVID period, and we have lots of reverse migrant labor who come back from particularly in state of Assam, for example, from North India or South India. People has come back because of the lockdown, and as a result of that, it make huge pressure on the resources in park. And we had particularly where I work in Manas Tiger Reserve, we had in that area we have elephant poaching around 4 elephant were poached, and also lots of as other people mentioned, bushmeat hunting were noticed, and people were also selling. People were also cutting trees, and whatever they were able to collect, basically for their survival. They tried to collect and sell this for their survival, because their savings has almost finished, and that's why we from with support from UNDP, we have provided some livelihood support to some reverse migrant worker. That was really helpful.
Is it?
But
Oh, I'm sorry. I just want to interject. I know that India was hit really badly with COVID. So are things slowly getting a little bit better? Are you, and yeah.
Yes, it is much better now, but particularly tourism industry has very badly affected, and all the hospitality business badly affected. Still, we have lockdown going on, curfew going on in areas. But one good thing, positive thing, is that wildlife is moving to new areas freely. There it is moving. The sighting of animal is also much more than earlier. So this is a good positive signs. Pollution has really gone down. So this is water particularly. This is also water pollution, air pollution has all gone down. And but same time, people pressure on natural resources has increased.
Are there less rangers on the ground protecting?
There are ranger and they, of course, because their duty is 24/7. They are not withdrawn from the park, but even there are for frontline ranger, including front officer, they died. There are many instances even in Assam, people who died as a result of COVID.
Great. Okay. Well, we're wishing you, I hope things get better, much better for you all soon. Thank you.
Yeah.
That brings me to the topic that I want to address: alternative livelihood. Poaching, everybody has tried to stop poaching, and like your organizations, for decades, and it goes on and on and on. And I feel like, we're all talking about alternative livelihoods for people, but it also has to be enjoyable alternative livelihoods for people. And we all know that they can't maybe make as much money as if they were to do something desperate, like to poach an animal, but that's not acceptable. So by protecting this species, we'll also protect the essential goods and services that make communities' lives possible, and we can all contribute enormously, that will all contribute to human health and well-being. So I particularly want to ask Brent about your great programs you have for community members, because I know you live with community members, and you've created some incredible things like beehive fencing, rainwater harvesting, and mobile bomas. And can you explain a little bit about your programs and how you feel that the skill set has really improved people's livelihoods?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, absolutely. We came to understand that to tackle human-wildlife conflict, I used to be specifically working on lion conflict. And so I was a specialist in mitigating conflict with livestock owners and lions. And then when we started the Softfoot Alliance, we broadened that to include elephant and baboons and honey badgers and hyenas, trying to tackle those 5 mammalian species, the conflict that people were suffering from them. And then no sooner had we started delving into that, we realized it was much broader than just mammalian conflict. So then we thought, okay, well, what is the source of conflict? Because tackling at species level, or even a level of sort of a group of species, is still just a band-aid on the wound. We've got to look at the reason people are, why do we have conflict with wildlife? And so our perspective is, because landscapes are degenerating across the world, but it's in our areas, it's where people live, and the wildlife areas are slowly degrading. And so that means the resources are becoming less and less, but there's more and more people and wildlife sharing it. And that's the source of conflict, is sharing finite amount of resources. So we came to understand if we try and make landscapes abundant in resources and abundant in opportunities for people, that would decrease the conflict. So, yeah.
Oh,
Sorry, carry on.
No, I love what you're saying, and I would love other people to give us their opinions too. But like the mobile bomas, for example, we know that much land is taken over by cattle, and I love the idea of these canvas mobile bomas that have been implemented in Zimbabwe, and I would like to know if they could be implemented in other areas like the Tana Delta where Rabia works, for example, and like. These specific things that you're creating are really helping community.
Yeah. Okay, so the mobile boma, Alan Savory, a man called Alan Savory came up with them, and I'm sure his work does reach northern Kenya. But the mobile boma concept is, there's a few people in this panel that are probably familiar with game capture. So the principle is if the lion can't see through the wall of the boma, can't see the cattle, he doesn't challenge it. And it's the simplest principle, but it really works. So these bomas, these cattle stockades are made of this curtain of canvas or of ripstop or any one of these materials that the lion can't see through. And you bring the cattle home after grazing and you stick them in there for the day, for the night. The benefit really, secondary benefit, the primary benefit, if you're looking at lion conflict or hyena conflict, is that we haven't had any losses from those bomas at night. No livestock have been killed, and this goes back a decade and a half. But the attraction for our people are, it fertilizes the fields. So when you concentrate these animals in your field locations during the night, there's urine, there's dung, and they're fertilizing what will be your crop field. So you're getting a bumper harvest in crops and reducing or negating the loss of livestock to predators. So this is really a double-edged sword which everyone loves. So it's very popular with us.
Thank you so much, Brent. Would anybody else like to interject on some good livelihood alternatives for community?
Oh, yes. Yes, we have been particularly from last 2015, we have been actively engaging people who are particularly dependent on the national park. So we call them INRE, illegal natural resource extractor. INRE, illegal natural resource extractor.
That is a wordful. That is a
yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, INRE. So these basically these people are caught inside the park by forest department, and we get their name through rangers, and particularly we visit their home, and then we discuss with them peer-to-peer discussion and ask them what are the alternative things you want to do, and based on their interest, willingness, we have been following them, and also same time education, and we have been very successful. And last 4 years, we got forest department got around 100 such individual who were involved in poaching, and out of 100, 3 people now only going in the park sometime. 97% people completely stop going.
Mm-hmm.
So like that, now entire family, we have a concept of family centric model where anybody above 18 plus we support. Suppose if mother wants to do weaving, so we provide this, if son wants to do beekeeping, or maybe if father wants to do fishery. So it's a combination of intervention, and if in case if any activity even not successful, other will replace. So this is a very good effort, technique which it's a combination of livelihood intervention which give a benefit to them. And we have seen that their initial household income was around 30,000 INR, and now it has doubling to almost 60,000 per annually.
So it seems like it's becoming successful over there, and you also have the manpower to reach out to those people
Yes.
to get them, interested in other alternative options, which takes me to someone like Rabia, who is working in a very, very remote area in the Tana Delta on her own, who's created her own anti-poaching unit, who doesn't have the manpower, for example. So Rabia, what would you do, or what would you say? What is your opinion on alternative livelihoods, especially in a place where you're working?
I was so hoping I wouldn't have to answer on this one, because I could literally go on for days. I mean, we're kind of, the Lower Tana Delta ecosystem is sort of like a melting pot of every possible kind of conflict you could dream of, when it comes to wildlife, and even when it comes to people. As you know, we are kind of at this point where we're not very far off from the presence of the Al-Shabaab militia, and so you've got IEDs and explosions every now and again, and you really find that it kind of, in my experience there over the last couple of years, it really does change the psyche of the communities that are living around there, because they're so used to this level of conflict that everything else sort of seems minor in comparison, and you have a lot of underlying pent-up anger and frustration, that's just built up over the years in a lot of people, and that really does translate into how they operate in their day-to-day lives. So you'll find that I would like to split it into 3 sort of subcategories when it comes to the conflict. So you've got one, which is the livestock herding community. Then you've got the fishing community, because remember, we're right by the ocean. And then you've got this community that really does survive a lot on, on bushmeat poaching, for example, and their alternative sort of activity aside from farming would be harvesting illicit brew. And it's really difficult to try and figure out what works best for each category. We had a huge success recently. On the 10th of April, I was involved with the Kenya Wildlife Service in apprehending a prawn trawler, which has been quite notorious in the waters of the Tana Delta, specifically in Kipini, just wreaking havoc on the marine ecosystem, really, leaving almost nothing for the fishermen there. And so with the fishermen not being able to fish for their food because it's their only source of actual sustenance, they then end up turning to crime and other bad activities. And so when we made that arrest, it really served as, we're still waiting for it to go to court, but it really did serve as sort of a wake-up call for the authorities, for the fisheries department, who really were not doing anything up until that point, to really look at the illegal fishing industry in Kenyan waters as a whole. What's resulted from that is that you find that the communities now are able to sustain themselves in a proper way because they're actually having harvests from the sea in a sustainable way. So that was a huge win for us. And then of course, with the other communities, you find that the livestock is almost contributing to the conflict that you find with wildlife raiding crop farms, for example, because the livestock are coming into the protected area, which is completely illegal. And as a result of that, they're driving wildlife out. And they obviously go into the surrounding farms. So we're really in a melting pot of conflict, I would say. And it's very difficult to try and find one solution that works for everyone. And so you've just got to pick and choose your battles and then deal with it one at a time. And so we're now working with the authorities to try and manage the livestock issue in order to bring down the human-wildlife conflict when it comes to crop raiding, and then also with depredation, because we've had a huge loss of our predator population in the Tana Delta. as a result of all of these livestock incursions. And so we've now implemented lion collaring, which assists us to, to see what their movement patterns are, what their distribution is like. And also, aside from giving us that added layer of protection for the actual lion prides that are collared, we're able to then provide assistance and rapid response to the communities if our lions stray, as it was. So yeah, there's not a one size fits all. You've just got to deal with each issue as best as you can.
I feel that it's so challenging in your area, especially, I mean, because most people fall well below the poverty line. So trying to get them to stop bushmeat poaching when they're desperate to eat, I find that very challenging. To what is the alternative livelihood for them? So I commend you for working in that area and keep fighting the fight, for sure. I want to just talk about Grant. You have an education, you go out and you educate a lot of children, community members about wildlife. Can you kind of, you and Nico, explain like how you feel education is helping people become more aware of what's going on with wildlife, and how the next generation can really make a difference and respect wildlife in a different way and stop this needless poaching? Can you walk us through the day of what you're doing when you are going to educate people, if you would, please? Grant, are you there? Okay. Okay, Grant, I'm not sure where Grant has gone. Okay, Grant? Okay, all right. If anybody has anything else that would like to say something about education or alternative livelihoods, please speak up. Otherwise,
Lisa,
yeah,
I can maybe just fill in there that I think, education is one of the only and last resources or ways we have to turn the whole environmental situation around, specifically looking at, well, anything you want to protect. So if it's a pangolin or a lion, leopard, elephant, whatever you're trying to conserve and preserve a species, you need to educate people. Just a simple example is the rhino horn. If we can start educating and I know there's programs that they're busy with, but educating the Taiwanese and Vietnamese and Japanese and the North Korean side of the whole myth that it's there for despite the fact that that it's a status symbol, but that there's literally no medicine value to the horns and all of that. You'd already make a big difference. You'll grow a generation of children that will grow up in trying to do the right thing and trying to change a 1,000-year-old history or tradition around, that it's absolutely, worthless. And then also in taking back to South Africa, if you can educate the local communities and try and uplift them. We're sitting with a problem in South Africa with a 37-40% unemployment rate. I know some of the other colleagues that's in this conference has got much worse problems than what we do, and much more difficult situations and literally war zones if you take what African parks and all of these people are doing. But educating the people is, in my opinion, one of the only and last resorts that we have left in really trying to turn it around, because I've been doing this really such a long time, and I've seen an impact, but too little impact. The people think that the rhino crisis is stabilizing if you look at the government statistics, but it absolutely is far from that. So absolutely, education is very, very critically important to carry on and to put funds into that. I think it's one of the only things that can save us still.
Yeah, I think every organization here has or is implementing some education program within their organization. Rachel, do you have something at Game Rangers International? Is there any type of education on your program on your website currently?
Yeah, there is. As I mentioned, we have 3 programs. So it's the community outreach program, which really supports communities, works with both the sort of adult population, the farmers, the community on alternative livelihoods, as well as the education at school level with the children. So we have education officers that work, going round all the schools in the area, focusing really on conservation clubs. And just to explain, we're working primarily in Kafue National Park, in and around Kafue National Park. So the communities that we're working with primarily are on the sort of southern eastern boundary of the national park. And so it's quite a sort of remote space. Infrastructure is quite poor. A lot of communities there are relying on subsistence living. So there's a lot of crop growing, and there are a lot of cattle as well. So, I mean, all of the things that have just been said are very much sort of affecting us as well, and areas that we're working in. The mobile corrals is actually something we're just about to start implementing, because in the last few months we've had unprecedented lion attacks on cattle, something that's, in that area, it's happened in the past, but not to the level it's happening now. Obviously, we're hoping that's a positive reflection on the local lion population, but obviously it's causing a huge conflict in the community. Wow. And elephant crop raiding is a huge challenge in that area. I mentioned that I work on the wildlife rescue side, sort of primarily has been with rescue, rehabilitation and release of orphaned elephants. And of course, we can't be releasing elephants that are just going to go into communities and create the same challenges. So one of our focuses now is to how we can support those communities with sort of mitigation strategies, how we can stop the elephants from constantly causing so much damage and economic loss for them. And as you've quite rightly noted, education is a huge part of that. So working with the school children, we have a radio program that goes out twice a week, Conservation Conversations, reaches 75,000 people. And it's a great way to engage people and get them having a sort of a two-way conversation about the challenges and what can be done, and helping them come up with some solutions.
Thank you. Grant, are you on? Are you able to chime in on that?
Yeah, humble apologies when our connection is very poor. I think I drove 10 hours today through the Drakensberg from the Eastern Cape, and it was I think the snow and everything has caused it. But yeah, as Nico said, and the others have said, education is key. Just to give, not to reiterate what everybody else is doing, the good work that they have. We've started with Kingsley Holgate Foundation and educated nearly 750,000 children in the last 7 years in the Rhino Art program, which has gone to gorillas. I started in the DRC as well as elephants throughout Africa. So, and I've also worked in Vietnam together with my brother in the Wilderness Foundation as well, with exchanges. So we've been to Vietnam a few times. We've had the kids out here. We've had summits for the youth. We're now busy with early childhood development, believe it or not. It's hard to believe that a toddler of 2 and 4 years old will make a difference, but we are now feeding the people with nutrition to make sure that their brain, they learn the wildlife lesson while they still toddlers and take it through, and then it affects the teachers and everything like that. So I won't ramble on.
I just want to ask you, you're feeding community members. I mean, you were doing that mainly through COVID, right? Like since COVID started, there was sources were very limited, so you were going into rural communities and feeding them. But are you doing anything different? Yeah.
Absolutely, Lisa. We actually just started as feeding hungry people surrounding parks, and to coin a phrase, we just used it as feeding the wildlife community. Not even a suburban mouth was fed. It was virtually people that were on the boundary fence line. And that kind of morphed into rangers and other people. And then our donors actually said to us, why don't we start with early childhood development? We thought that COVID was actually, going to get better. And then it actually got a little bit worse. And now with the riots and that in KwaZulu-Natal specifically, there's even been a plea for feeding people, and by the end of I think this month we would have reached over 2 million meals, which is quite, for a rhino organization and a community organization. I don't think many government people have achieved that.
Yeah, I think that's amazing what you've been doing. And this is your second year. This is the second year of doing that.
Yeah,
that's incredibly
absolutely
commendable. I just wonder, we only have a few more minutes and then we're going to start with Q&A. But one thing that I really wanted to just ask everybody about ranger welfare, like, does everybody feel like, how do you feel like, what is the common thread that you're all currently seeing that's happening with rangers, whether it's good or bad or lacking or improving? Just, I'd love to hear from each of you, just like a couple of sentences on what you're noticing is happening with rangers on the ground. Are there enough supplies? Are there not enough training? Are there enough people? Are people becoming corrupt? If I can just briefly hear from all of you on your take on what is happening with rangers. And is there a ranger union? I feel like there should be a ranger union to give them extra support financially and with medical and all that sort of stuff. Anybody who would like to jump in and answer that, please feel free. If Rabia was under mute, I know she would.
Yeah, well, Lisa, you know, the rangers, I think, you can one only just say that they've worked under very, very difficult situations and with limited resources. So we do a lot of funding to get them the best equipment and the best capabilities, but you sit in reserves and parks that you know don't even have the financial capabilities of paying overtime. You can imagine, you know, going to outposts in the middle of the winter. It's not an easy job. You're aware that we've lost a colleague due to a line attack the end of last year in COVID. So these people are really working on a very, very difficult situation, but also it's proven that unfortunately, you know, a lot of the information is given out what's going on inside the park through these people that just get corrupt out of desperate situations and financial gain. So it's a very difficult situation to you know, give them the best that there is, and also trying to get the conservation effort optimal utilized. So yes, definitely a difficult situation, and we need to applaud the work that these people do. I mean, Kruger's teams are absolutely in a war zone there. You know, I think Kruger is losing, as we speak, between 30 and 50 rhino a month, my personal opinion. And, you know, these people are literally in a war zone, where we are up in the Northwest after our dehornings. Just to give you an idea, you know, we've literally had a flying time of 30 to 40 hours a month, and rescuing of about 14 to 16 orphans per year, and attending to I would say about 100 to 120 rhinos in terms of shots, wounded, and all of that. We after the dehornings, we lost 7 animals in a total of 17 months. You know, so it's been a huge success. Not the option that any of us would like, but it's made a miraculous difference to rhino conservation. But back to your point on the rangers, we just need to applaud these guys for absolutely doing the hardest work that there is to do with the limited funding available.
And thank you, what is Game Rangers Association of Africa? Is that a union that grant you just mentioned as well?
GRAA is all through Africa. It's not just a Southern African thing. There are people that have joined from Zambia and Angola, and there are awards right now. I think even Nico's won that award at some stage, always been close to it. And, you know, you can join for 475 Rand a year, or less than $40. And if you're a ranger, you can join for less than $100.
What is
and there
it?
are it's an association of game rangers for Africa, you know, and they give a lot of support. A colleague of mine was chairman, and now he's chairman of the World Rangers Federation. So to be part of a body that also has a subsidy on rangers for insurance, and there's very little support when there's an arrest. People that need to go to court with them, judicial support, they're very often on their own, and their livelihoods or their lives are in danger. So those are the sort of associations that can support them. So I won't ramble on too much, but
because I didn't know about that. Rabia, is there anything you want to add to this?
I mean, just to reiterate what Nico was saying, is obviously rangers are, sorry, I just realized my video's off. Yeah, I mean, rangers are obviously going through an immense amount of pressure at this time and at any given time. And for us here in Kenya, when COVID struck, the government did put out a stimulus fund, which was supposed to, assist rangers during this time. For whatever reason, a lot of rangers haven't yet seen the benefit from this fund. It's been a year now and they're still waiting. So we're hoping that something comes through at some point. But what that has meant is basically a lot of instability, financial instability for the rangers. What we've done as an organization is we provided a zero interest-based loan for our rangers and for the rangers around our area, just to be able to cushion them financially during this time. We also got some support from one of our principal partner organizations to be able to give them sort of like a COVID relief fund for a period, I think it was for a period of about 4 months or 5 months, which enabled them to better care for their families who now were home. And of course, a lot of people don't really look at rangers from the home front perspective. You find that they often are the sole breadwinners for even their extended families, whereby they might have a sibling or two who's trying to get some kind of manual labor here and there. And of course, with COVID, their brothers or their, cousins were suddenly not working. And now everyone's looking to this one ranger to just provide this financial support for everyone else. So it's been difficult to go through all of this with them, but it's been nice to know that there is support out there. For us personally, we have provided them with a lot of additional gear, and again, like I said, the financial support that we've been able to provide them. But more needs to be done for sure to ensure that rangers have a sustainable sort of way to be stable financially, and not just them personally, but also their extended families. So while we're looking at, providing alternative livelihoods for communities, we should try and also look at these individual rangers that are under our charge and what we can do for other members of their families, without that necessarily compromising the integrity of our work in the field. Because if you look after, their families, then you're able to kind of get them more on side with regards to not having a situation where they're compromised and sharing information, is what I feel.
Great, thank you. And I want to end, very well said. I want to end it with anybody else who wants to say last words before we go into Q&A. Rachel?
Yeah, sorry, I just felt with working for Game Rangers International, I really should comment on the Rangers, because they really are at the heart of our organisation, and empowering the Rangers is really the driver. So, it's well acknowledged that they just don't have the level of support that they need to do their jobs. And as it's been acknowledged here, their jobs are incredibly difficult, risky, and require a lot of them, and they're not necessarily compensated in the way they need to be. So Game Rangers International really focuses on sort of 3 main areas, and it's training, operational support and welfare. And so those are the areas that we try to support the Rangers with. So the Rangers don't necessarily are employed by our organisation, but those are the 3 key areas that we're supporting them with, to facilitate them to do their jobs better through the training, through the operational support, but also to ensure that they're looked after in their home lives with their welfare package. And you know, when people are looked after and happy in their work, then they're likely to perform better. So I guess a lot of it's common sense, but it's really in showing these people who are working in very remote situations and feeling possibly quite isolated at times, that there are, you know, people who care about them, who are fighting the fight for them and with them. And I think, you know, there's a lot of organizations that are starting to support rangers more and more, but as a whole, we probably need a lot more of them, and we need more resources for them. We certainly haven't got to that point where it's where it needs to be.
Got it.
Lisa, I would just like to just 10 seconds. You know, if I listen to what everybody's saying and the conclusion everybody's making, it comes back to our old discussion that we need to get more people involved financially that's got the means to assist, because if you've got the right financial capabilities, we can change anything. There's so many people sitting with the funds, you know, that can make a difference, that can pay people better wages, that Rachel is talking about, and Rabia was talking about, and Grant was referring to. That is the challenge today, and there's so many people willing to help, but there's in South Africa 400 rhino conservation organizations, NPOs, but I know of 5 to 10 really doing the work. So that's the problem we're sitting with. There's so many resources going in 1,000 directions where we're all fighting the same fight.
It's a hard battle, that's for sure. Vibhuti, is there anything you would like to add?
Yes, in Assam also, the ranger are the backbone of the forest, and every year the rhinos, elephant, kill them, like more than dozen they get killed. And we did a study and of ranger which are remotely located, and we found that their stress, their health is not good. They're all, because they need to run two, three families, and their salaries is not you know, enough to manage these families. And one important is that, you know, their children's particularly education is suffered, because most of the time they cannot, father cannot guide. That is a big challenge we found. And what happened, suppose in police, if in case of police, if someone died on duty, they get handsomely paid, but for ranger they hardly get you know, that compensation is very less. So although now International Ranger Association and Asian Ranger Federation through that sometime you know, benefits comes, but you know, that attention required. Otherwise it will be very difficult in near future. If morale go down, it will be difficult to protect wildlife. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to thank everybody so much for your time and your knowledge, and we're so thrilled to have you with us. We're going to end with a very quick Q&A. CL, can you jump on 1 second?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so how are we doing the Q&A for this?
That's an excellent question. I think I have some questions in our live stream Facebook chat. So let me just pull those up.
So while you're doing that, I just want to end with Rabia. You just wanted to say one thing?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, obviously, Erase Extinction is really more about sort of, obviously, aside from helping us raise the funds that we need to continue to operate, it's about trying to create a sort of movement, from what I understand. And so for everyone that's watching, I'd just like to say that, you know, the rangers that are out there on the field are really not as recognized as they should be. Yes, there are a lot of associations popping up and trying to, you know, unify rangers, which is a really great thing. But my call to action would be to really try and see rangers as part of a critical workforce, and not as just people from the informal sector, because you've got so many NGOs and conservancies that are hiring rangers that are not part of a government system. And so they're sort of seen, in my view, as members of what you'd call an informal sector. And as a result of that, they don't really necessarily get the support and the mechanisms that are needed for them to, for them to survive really and live, you know, a good standard of life and maintain that for their families. And so I would say just support rangers whenever and wherever you can. Make sure that the organizations that you're supporting are credible and actually have rangers on the ground that are actually working, and not, you know, we have seen cases where, you know, people are doing all of these drives for support and calls for support, but they might not be legitimate. And so it's really important for you as a donor to do your background checks and make sure that you're getting your money's worth. And I really feel very strongly about this because, remember, I wasn't born into conservation. I came in from the media world. And so I kind of have a bit of a different perspective on this. But really, for sure, if you want to see a change for wildlife and fight extinction, then you've got to support the men and women that are on the front lines fighting this war every single day with everything that they've got. It's supporting the rangers. There's just no two ways about it. So I guess that's all I have to say on that issue. But yeah, that should be the movement. I think if you want to fight extinction, support the rangers.
That's the truth. Thank you so much. I see Heidi Joe is on. Heidi Joe, is there anything you would like to ask? Because I can't see your question actually.
Oh, hi guys. I'm so, it was so enthralling to see everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yep.
Can you hear me? Oh, you can hear me.
Yeah, we're
Oh,
here.
great. Well, I had written a question. Can you see it?
No, that's what I'm saying. I couldn't follow it, and I'm not sure where it is.
Oh.
I've been.
Okay. So first of all, no worries. I'm not in front of it, so I'd written it earlier. But I just wanted to say thank you so much to all of you. Great to see everyone on this panel. Lisa, you did an amazing job bringing this group together. This is our second annual Global E-Race Extinction. Same group as last year, which is an amazing group, all of you. And
Okay, it's actually very hard.
we're missing bloodlines here. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're
Can you hear me
going.
now?
You're going in and out.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're
Okay. So the objective is not. Can you hear me now, Lisa?
Yes.
Okay, so the objective is not just to raise, do an event to raise money and awareness, but just also a movement. As Rabia said, that's what our objective is to get the whole world involved, and also to unite beneficiaries and amazing NGOs like we heard today. Can you each tell us very quickly, since last year's first global E-Race Extinction, what it has been like since we started this? Have you reached out to each other? Have you reached out to other NGOs to unite in our common goal? I mean, we're all, vying to raise funds, as individual organizations, but I think the power is in our unification. So can anybody speak a little bit to what the experience has been since last year's global E-Race Extinction? Because I know some people have continued to work together on this common goal.
Okay. I'm not sure. Is everybody here still? Okay.
I'm here, Lisa. It's my first privilege to join you, so I can't comment on year-to-year progress. But thank you. I agree fully that it's a collective fight that we need to fight, and if everybody just stand together and try and have the same goals and educate, it can make a huge difference. But I'm looking forward and seeing the progress going on from here on forward, and really privileged to join your group.
Thank you so much. We've actually run out of time, and I'm just going to say this is the very last question that we really can ask you all. And I just have this from an audience member. If you can all just say one sentence on this, is there any way the local governments will start financially supporting the additional hiring and resources for the rangers? Like, are you getting financial support from the government to hire more rangers onto your teams?
I think I already answered that from my side. There was initially a plan by the Kenyan government to provide what they called an economic stimulus fund, an economic stimulus package for rangers, which was supposed to aid conservancies who have hired rangers to cushion them from obviously the impact of COVID and losing out on a lot of the donor base and, you know, whatever tourism money comes into the conservancies. Some conservancies have seen that. Some we're still waiting. It's almost 10 months now down the line. So, you know, it's the government systems. That's what I can say. You know, it just has a way of working around here, and it's not as efficient as we would like. So from our side, there has been an effort, and we're just hoping that those promises will be kept.
Thank you. Anybody else last comments on that? Because we have run out of time, but anyone else that wants to say anything?
Lisa, can I comment about, I'd just like to comment that, so certainly in South Africa and a few other places that I've been working in, some of our neighboring countries, we'll all grow old if we're waiting for the government to do something. We simply have to get into the corporates or the NGOs in America or Germany or Europe to be able to save Africa, because there's no ways that we're going to do it with our governments. The South African government have got no resources, no money. The provincial parks are in disarray. We simply have to prop them up most of the time. And I'm not saying that to get into trouble. It's just the fact of life. So I don't know. I'm sure Nico will agree.
Lisa, absolutely agree with Grant. I think everybody is following South Africa's political and news from day to day. It's absolutely not on their agenda to do anything about wildlife. Even if you just look at the you know, elephant conservation in South Africa, there's just no elephant you know, book on elephant management, approved management systems. I know there's a lot of drafts and a lot of everything. Nobody can take a decision on an elephant in terms of good or bad. So, you know, we're sitting with such a high employment rate. It's just not a priority at all. If there's no NPOs, if we stop doing what we do today, we would lose 25% more rhinos per year. If NPOs stop doing and the world stops supporting us, we'll definitely be in a decline faster than the world can realize. So absolutely agree with Grant. We need to, you know, just carry on what we're doing, get more people involved, train more pilots, get more people passionate about conservation, get out there, do the work, you know, get it done. That's the only way we're going to save animals in our continent.
Yes, you can't rely on the government.
Not at all.
Bottom line. I want to thank everybody so much for all your time and your generosity. We're thrilled that you're with us, and we will be in touch. Thank you very, very much. And that's it from me. That's it from Erase Extinction. So that's it. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. This is going to be recorded, so we can send you copies if you would like. And I am going to sign off and say, have a good evening, everybody. Stay well, stay safe, keep doing what you're doing. We really admire you, that's for sure.
Thank you, everyone, and stay safe.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much to everybody,
Right,
all the
bye,
panelists.
Grant. Bye, Rabia. Bye, Pitabu. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so
Cheers,
much.
Brent. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.